Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. It's a very warm Friday evening here in Bahrain. I'm recording this one a couple of weeks in advance, not that far in advance, a couple of weeks in advance to when you guys will hear it on a Tuesday. Owner's Stories, if you haven't listened to an Owner's Stories before and you've just found the podcast and you're listening to this one, Owner's Stories is every Tuesday. The other episode we do is me and Steve, my mate in Sydney who owns a 997 GT3. He's had many air-cooleds. Steve and I chat on Fridays. But today we have another Owner Stories, and this is, I guess, it's a special one. And I know Ajmal at Flat Cap Driver was telling me that I should do something special for this number one, for this number, but I don't know. It's not just a number; it's pretty important. This is number 50. If you're wondering what I am talking about, this is number 50 of the Owner Stories. I didn't want to do anything special. I just want these Owner Stories to be about you guys. This is how it is. This is how it's always been. I just want to say, though, during this period of Owner Stories, I have actually been contacted by more well-known type of people. A couple, not a lot. I'm not going to say a lot, but a couple. That I haven't actually recorded as yet. It's not saying that I won't, but Owner Stories was always about us. It was always about Porsche owners like me, like Steve. You know, we have a little bit of money. Some of us might have more than others. Some of us might have collected cars over the years and have more Porsches, but we all got the same passion. We're all just I guess not the little guys, but we're all just following our passion and wanting to be a part of the Porsche community and wanting to be enjoying the brand and living the brand. And I know there's a lot of people who've listened to Owner Stories who didn't have a 911 or a Porsche before they started listening to it, or the PorscheCooled podcast, I should say. And during that period, they've bought a 911 and they've told me, or they've bought a Boxster, or they bought a Cayman, which I think is what's really great about this series. And what I guess one of the things I'm kind of proud of, that it's like, I don't think that, Steve and I always think, we're just enthusiasts, we're just mates chatting about Porsche. We don't think we have, not underselling ourselves, but we don't think we have, amazing advice. We just chat about something that we really like. And I think that's what makes it, good for us. That's what makes it enjoyable. And, I guess that's what makes you guys also enjoy it. Anyway, this is number 50. I just want to say thanks to everyone that's been on Owner Stories, from the very first, my mate Nick in London, to Bobby, who we're about to introduce in a second, number 50. I just want to say thank you to all the owners. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for reaching out to me. This whole podcast and everything associated with it. Friday's episode with me and Steve is great, but I know you guys really love hearing other owners' stories. And if you guys didn't reach out to me and you didn't give me the time to chat and be on this little podcast, then it wouldn't be where it is today. So a big thank you to everybody, and also to everyone that supports the podcast and listens to the podcast. But because we're talking about Owner Stories, thank you to all the 50 owners who have been on Owner Stories to date. Anyway, I'm running a little bit late. Bobby's going to come online in about 4 minutes. Bobby's coming in from Portland in Oregon in the US. Bobby's a first-time Porsche owner. I don't want to tell you too much about the story. I don't want to give too much away. Bobby reached out to me on Instagram. He's been sending me pics of cars he's owned before, and we've been chatting on and off. So let me get Bobby. Let's connect via Zoom, how all these owner stories are done, and let's start talking about his PorscheCooled owner story. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Like I said, this is Owner Stories number 50, and I've got Bobby with me coming in from Oregon, in Portland in Oregon, sorry. I'm getting confused. Portland in Oregon. Good morning, Bobby. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. Thank you for asking.
I was just going to say, this is, just so you know, your Owner Stories number 50. This is actually the 50th episode of Owner Stories. So you got a bit of a milestone episode, Bobby. You're part of PorscheCooled history.
I love it. Honored.
So let's get straight into it. I'll tell the listeners, Bobby reached out to me through Instagram, and we were chatting about his cars. He's first Porsche owner. We're going to get into that. But before we start with, how it ended all up, we're going to start with how it all began. So Bobby, we all start at a certain place. Some of us have posters on the wall. Some of us sometimes our parents own a Porsche. Sometimes our relatives own a Porsche, or friends own a Porsche. How did it all start for you? Did you start noticing 911s or Porsches when you were younger, or was it something that happened later in life?
I think it was younger, when I had the matchboxes, and I was always collecting matchboxes when I was a kid, and had a Porsche and all kinds of cars, Corvette, that I played with. So I always loved cars, but I think the most memorable moment it was my freshman year in college. I went to Western Oregon University here in Oregon, and probably about 1984. And we had a neighbor who were brothers, and they were from the Middle East, and they were here going to school. And they both had really nice cars. I think at the time they were like the Nissan 240ZXs, and I thought those were amazing cars. Well, they had a party time, and they invited some friends from out of town. And this guy comes in with a black Porsche with this huge fin on the back. And I was, what is that? And he goes, oh, it's a Porsche 911 Turbo with this huge whale fin. That was the craziest car I ever saw, until his other friend came, this same party. This was right across the street. He had a Lamborghini Countach with the big wing. It was white. And so I had both those cars there. And you look at the Countach and you're like, what planet did this come from? Right. And I was just staring at it, but there was something about the 911 that was just sexier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just amazing looking car, but the lines blended. When you looked at the Countach, it was almost overwhelming to look at, because there's so many angles, so many things going on. It was so, the look was so advanced for its time. But the 911, the rounded front fenders and the lights, I just instantly fell in love with it. And I love that big whale tail. I just was like, oh my gosh, this looks like a piece of art. It was beautiful to me. And the Lamborghini was beautiful, but it was just overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think that's something that sticks in all of our minds, really. That tail on the Porsche, isn't it? I mean, it's something that even if you don't know what model it is, or you don't know what it is, it's like you see that tail and you see the size of it and you see the shape of it. And it's like when you first, like what you said about the lights, when you first buy a 911 and you're driving it and you see the shape, you see the shape of the front of the car and the headlights, and you realize what you're in. You realize the heritage of what you're driving. You know what I mean? It's been around for so long, and those iconic features. But that's not a bad two-car collection these days, isn't it? The 930 Turbo, the 911 wow. 930 Turbo, and a Countach. I know, they're different, they're polarizing, but, they go really well together as a collection, I think. That's for sure.
It was amazing to see them for the first time together, just unexpected, right? They just pull up, and Countach was so loud. I remember that.
Right.
Very loud car.
So those two cars are in your mind. You're thinking, how can I get one? How can I get to that level? How does your car journey start? What are the cars that you start to get into that are memorable and you still think about today? And you think that was a great car to own during my car journey.
Ironically, early on, probably until I'm 55 now. It was probably till I was about 48. I was super responsible with my money. I love cars, but I never really bought a car that didn't fit a need, right? I had a pickup truck because I was a police canine handler for a long time, and it was a way to transport my canine partner outside of work, maybe to the river or something like that. It was always a use. But what I used to do, and you can laugh at me, is I always dreamed of owning a Porsche. So I would see cars advertised at different dealerships, right? And I wouldn't pick a Porsche dealership. I'd pick a Toyota or an Acura.
Right.
And I'd see that they would have a 911 there, and I would go and pretend that I was interested in it just so I could drive it.
Right.
And I must have did that 4 or 5 times over the
really?
years. Yeah. I would just, anytime I had a bug, like I said, okay, I'm going to buy something special. I would go test drive it. And then I would rationalize, I have, I've got a family, I'm buying houses, I'm saving for retirement. And so,
but it's keeping the dream alive, though, isn't it? You're keeping the dream alive.
It was keeping the dream alive.
Because, you're going out and you're test driving these cars with maybe no intention of buying them at that time, but you're still enjoying these different
no
intention. And you're enjoying, you're getting to know the 911, aren't you? You're driving obviously at different times, different years, different models, so it's like, I kind of like it. I kind of like that you're keeping it there for later on, and we'll come back to that.
I was trying to find out what I did like, right? I mean, I drove some Cabriolets and some Targas, and
right.
one turbo, which is the turbos back then were crazy. I mean, back then they were super fast. Now it's, you could get a base model Tesla that would rival it.
So these were air cooled Porsches. Then we're talking about 80s and 90s, right? That's what we're talking about.
And then probably, I think maybe about 7 to 10 years ago, a friend of mine, Ron, bought a 98. I think it's an SC, red. Oh, that car was gorgeous. That kind of got me thinking about it. Is he took me for a ride and it let me drive it. And I was like, I need to find a way to buy a Porsche. And that's when it really started again. And so my wife is super responsible with our money. And when I brought the subject up and I was getting closer to retirement, here in Oregon, if you're a police officer and you've been in the system for over 30 years, you can retire at a younger age.
Okay.
Plus, if you're smart, you do a lot of other investing over the years to help you get there. That being said, I decided this was something I wanted to start before I stopped working, and talked to my wife about buying something special. Wasn't sure what. Porsche definitely was there. I was also thinking about the Corvette. I love Corvettes.
Mm-hmm.
And she just was really balking at the idea. And so I said, well, what if I do it and it doesn't cost us any money? And she laughed and said, yeah, sure, go ahead. You can do it then. So there was a point where we bought her a new car, which I love that car, BMW 535D with the M Sports package.
Okay.
It's a diesel.
Yeah.
Oh boy, what a great car. Love that car. I thought that was
What model year is that one?
2016.
Okay.
And I really thought that was going to kind of fix the bug, right? The diesel has a lot of torque and it's fun to get on it. It's a heavy car. It didn't. So I had a 2006 Mercedes ML350 that we've owned since it was new. And I was driving that. We gave her car, which was like a Toyota Corolla or Camry, to our son when he was in college. And so she needed a new car. That's when we bought the BMW. Well, I had a Toyota pickup, a 2013 Toyota pickup that I owned. And I thought, I'm going to continue to drive the Mercedes, which I like. And I was looking the values of the Tacoma, and they were pretty high back then. That was 6 years ago. And I sold it for about $1,000 less than I paid for it brand new.
Wow.
And it was 5 years old when I sold it. So I took that money and I started looking for a car. And my idea was I watched a TV show on the Discovery Channel where I think it was a guy from Wheeler Dealer. He was flipping cars to get to a quote supercar.
Okay.
From buying just like a Honda Civic or something. He was flipping up how far he could get. And I think he ended up getting a Corvette at the end.
This is where you just surprised me before when you just said about your car journey. You said it was quite sort of normal, mundane type cars. You know what I mean? And then the images that you sent me, the 2 images of the cars you sent me weren't just normal, mundane cars. They were actually very cool cars. So I want to get into those. And we're leading on to that. And this is the part of your story, which I think the listeners will enjoy, is that, all of us have, we all have priorities. We all have these priorities. We have life priorities, thinking about our retirement, thinking about the future or whatever. And then you get to a point where you go, okay, I know I still want a 911. How am I going to get it? And it's not always, easy to come up with the funds. We might not want to get a loan. We're going to make our way up to it. I like how you've worked this out, Bobby, and you've thought, okay, this is my goal, and I'm going to buy these cars. And the cars you bought, which you're going to get into now, you've really enjoyed, right? They were great cars. I mean, especially
I've owned each of them for 2 years.
Yeah, and then you've moved those cars on to get your dream Porsche. So just tell the listeners how you did that, and what was the first car that you purchased? Because you had the pickup, and then you said you sold the pickup, didn't you?
I did. I sold the pickup, and I owned it. I like to pay cash for cars. I don't like to take loans out. So when I sold it, like I said, I got $1,000 less than I paid for it, and I started shopping. And I was looking specifically for cars I liked, and cars I thought that I could get at a low enough price that I could put some sweat equity into it and flip it down the road and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so the first car I bought was a 1969 Camaro.
Yeah.
It was garnet red metallic, and had painted black stripes that were kind of a little smoked in it. Some things that I did to that car. What was funny is when I got it, I parked it in the third bay of our garage, took a picture of it, sent it to my friend at work. I was still working, but I was off site. Like I said, I was a canine handler, and I was in a different unit.
Right. And
so my friend worked for my wife, and he was on patrol, and I sent him this picture. And then he showed it to my wife and said, "Oh, look, Bob just bought a new car." And I hadn't told her yet.
Okay, can I ask you a question? You sent me the picture of that car, that Camaro.
Yeah.
And it looks fantastic. It's got the chrome wheels. It's, the color is amazing.
Yeah, it had the Carrera wheels on it.
The paint is amazing. And it's got that little lip at the front. I don't know much about Camaros, I'll be honest with you, Camaros.
Yep.
Was it like that when you bought it, or did you get it to that stage? How was the condition when you bought it?
The condition was really nice when I bought it. It didn't have any suspension work done to it. And the interior, the seats were done, but the dash and the gauges were really old. Some of them didn't work. They were original.
Right.
So what I did was worked some overtime.
Yep.
Saved some money into an account, Yep. And a friend of mine, I always say that he's the surgeon and I'm the trauma nurse. Is that I'm not super handy with cars. I'm a great helper.
Yeah.
I take great direction.
Yeah.
He has a lift, and I knew he had built a Camaro. He remodeled or resto modded a Camaro himself.
Right.
So we did new front suspension, new, Hotchkiss leaf springs in the back. We lowered it about 1.5 inches, put traction bars on it. Then we took the dash apart. I put all new gauges in it, that updated gauges that were retro looking.
Yep. Is that a rare Camaro? Is that like a sought after one?
It wasn't. But what I did is I made it a tribute car. When I first got it, it just looked kind of like you see it. But then what I did is I went and got Z28 badges, and I rebadged it as a Z28. And the reason why I did is I do what everybody else does. I'm on the internet looking at other cars, like now it's 911s that I look at, and I got ideas, and I say, you know what, this car would look great with some Z28 badging.
Yeah.
So I did that, put Z28 badges on it. And then, I drove it for 2 years, but the car cheated on me. Okay. Michael, I threw a lifter when it was supposed to be a brand new motor, and then incurred the unexpected cost of doing a lot of engine work to it.
Right.
And so after that, it was time for her to leave the stable because I just didn't trust her. Solid car, the motor, we rebuilt the motor completely. Okay. But that was kind of the tipping point for me to move on to my next venture.
So then comes the next one. This is on the journey to get the 911. You've still got that 911 in the back of your mind, right? This is what we're working towards, getting a 911.
Yes.
So the 69 Camaro, did you make money or lose money on that? Did you come out okay?
I came out okay. I did very well.
Oh, that's good.
I held it just long enough. I did just the right mods. But this is the interesting part of the story. So remember I was talking about my friend at work that I texted the picture, and he told my wife, "Oh, it looks like you got a new car." He's another canine handler. We've been friends for a long time. His name's Todd. And we talk about cars all the time on the phone, almost every day, just about different things. And one of the things that we always say is, what are you looking at now? If I gave you, say, $50,000, what would you buy, Todd? Right? Yep. And he's like, "Oh, I found it. I found this Factory 5 Racing 65 Shelby Cobra replica." Okay. Really? And he goes, "I'll send you the link. It's on Craigslist. It's local." Wow, I haven't seen one of those local. I know Factory 5 Racing is made in Massachusetts, and that's where I'm from, so I'm familiar with the brand.
Right.
So he sends me this link, and I'm on the phone talking cars like I am talking with you. And while I'm there, and I click on the link and I look at it, and I said, black with silver stripes, 331 stroker, 507 pounds of torque, 447 horsepower. This thing is gorgeous.
It really is a beautiful looking car.
Huge tires on the back. Oh my gosh. So there was a contact button on the Craigslist ad.
Right.
And I knew the guy was local. And I sent him a text with a picture of the Camaro.
Okay.
And all I wrote was, "Are you interested in a trade?"
All right.
And he was asking high 40s for the Cobra at the time. This was 2 years ago.
Right.
And I paid, I'll tell you what I paid for the Camaro back in the day I paid $30 for it. Okay. So I'm thinking, well, this might be this is definitely an up trade for me. We'll see what I can work out.
Yeah.
And so he texts me back and says, yes. And I text him back and the next day, it was raining that day. I never drove the Camaro in the rain. And I said, imagine that raining in Oregon. Luckily I got a clear day the next day. And so I met up with him, but I told my friend, I said, "Hey, I got to go. I'm trying to work at a trade for that Cobra that you sent me." And he's just like, "You're killing me." I know I got to go. He says, "Whatever." Right. So the guy texts me back, and he's an attorney here in Portland.
Right.
And we agree to meet, and I pick him up at his office and I take him for a ride. And I'm having a good time riding. It had a 3D3 stroker, mine did. Super, lot of torque, super fast car, fast in a straight line, not Porsche fast. And I could see him smiling from ear to ear when I wouldn't let him drive it. I just didn't want him to put it in the ditch. Right. It was a crazy, the Camaro was crazy. Take him for a ride. He goes, "Well, let's head to my house. I'll show you the Cobra." So we go up to his house, and I parked the Camaro outside, and there's a 3-car garage. And then he's got an out garage with some other classic cars in there. And he opens the garage doors, and I see this McLaren parked right next to the Cobra.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, this guy is a car guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
let me just tell the listeners, you sent me this image as well, and I was a bit knocked out by it. You know what I mean? It really is. There's something about those Cobras. But I want you to explain to the listeners before we go any further, what is Factory 5 Racing? What is that all about? Because people who don't know about Cobras.
There's a big replica market for some of these older cars, and Factory 5 Racing out of Massachusetts they make, imagine this, I got so into it that when I was back visiting family, I made my wife go to the production plant and met the owner and got a tour, right? That's just 100% my personality. If I'm in, I'm all in.
Yeah.
So they make the frames there in-house. They make the bodies, the suspension, everything except the motor and the transmission.
Okay.
And you buy it as the frame is all assembled, but as a kit, and then you put it together.
Okay.
Either by...
Sorry, Bobby, this is like a very respected sort of kit sort of car in a way. Like this is the Replica Shelby. It's a bit like Beck do with the Porsche Speedsters and Spiders, right? It's a similar sort of thing, similar reputation. They've been around for a long time. Is that a good comparison?
Yes, Factory 5 Racing has an excellent reputation. And two ways you do it. Either find a automotive shop that will put it together for you and build it.
Yep.
Or if you're a real wrench turner, you do it yourself, and you have the privilege of instead of I bought it, I built it. But they're not inexpensive. If you're going to buy a quote kit new, it's with everything. It's just the parts. It's probably about $47,000 US just for the parts, and then you still have together. So
that's no engine, or you have to supply your own engine?
That would include your engine, but you'd have to buy a crate engine. But just
and
parts.
What engine do they put in those?
This one was you can do anything from a 427
right
to this one had a 331 stroker. And what that is they take a Ford Racing 302 and they bore it out, put longer pistons in it, and it's a 331 stroker. That's what I had.
Okay, so it's a fun car. So you go to you go to the lawyer's house. You see he's got a car collection. You're in your 69 Camaro, and he's got this Shelby. And this is what the bit I always find really complicated when you're doing a trade. How do you work out the value for value?
This is the best part of the story. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, I've got to have this car. But my wife is not going to let me spend a nickel of money, because that was our agreement. I can flip cars, but I can't add money to it.
But is she going to believe you? Is she going to believe you that you didn't spend any money? This is the thing.
She's the money person in our relationship, so she's going to know.
All right.
So I'm looking to move the Camaro. It was really loud. She didn't like riding in it.
Yep.
We couldn't really talk. So I see this car and he goes, why don't you go ahead and back it out? But it's parked next to the McLaren.
Right.
And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm backing this car out. Right. So I asked him to do it. And his name's Kevin. Kevin gets in the car, and we end up being friends later. He gets in the car, and Kevin's tall. He's got to be 6'5", 6'6".
Right.
Right. And I'm only 5'10".
Right.
He gets in the car, and two things I immediately notice. One, his big feet is having to get into the box where the pedals are. And then his head is so far above the windshield. I'm giggling going, I know why he's getting rid of this car. He can't drive it. He can't even fit in it. So he backs it out. And it sounds amazing with those big pipes and it's like, I have this Matchbox car too. Yeah. Right. And I gotta have this car. And so we go back and forth on the price. He's like, I'll take your car and 10 grand. Right. I'm like, nope. And then I talk about my car for a while. He goes, okay, I'll do you a solid. Your car and 5 grand.
Okay.
And I'm thinking Nicole's going to kill me if I do $100, let alone 5 grand.
Right.
And so I just threw a flyer out there and I said, you know what? I just saw you try to back that car out. You can't even fit in this car. You're not going to enjoy it. You got to move this thing. And I saw what you looked like when you were riding in mine.
Yep. And
you look like a 13-year-old boy again. He's like, oh, I love that car. I took my hand out and I said, straight across.
So deal done.
paused and shook my hand. He goes, I might regret it, but I really like that Camaro.
Oh, that's great.
And that was it. We signed titles over. I brought the title with me, and
Fantastic.
we signed titles over right there. Yeah.
So did you win in that deal? You won in that deal, didn't you? That car was worth slightly more than yours, right?
Yeah, I won. That's how I went up.
Yeah.
I won in that deal.
Okay, so that was 2 years ago, right? Is that 2 years ago?
That was 2 years ago.
So you've been driving the Camaro, the Shelby for how long? How long was it before you decided, okay, I think the values of these have shifted. COVID's done a lot of crazy things with car prices. You've been enjoying the Cobra. How was the Cobra though compared to the Camaro? Which one did you prefer?
They were different cars. You know, the Camaro originally what drew me to that was the car the rich kid had, you know, growing up that you know I could never afford. It would look at it in hot rod magazines, those type of things. But there's something super sexy about a Shelby Cobra, 1965 Shelby Cobra. If you watched Ford versus Ferrari, you know that it's talked about there. The reason, what I love most about cars is, to me, it speaks to freedom. I can get in the car and just go anywhere I want to.
Yep.
And I'm making decisions on the fly, and I love being connected to a car, shifting it, feeling the horsepower. It just forgets, you know, being a police officer as long as I was, there's, you know, you take home some trauma, and this was my way of escaping it, is just blocking it out, because you have to focus on the driving. So pure driving experience, the Cobra was hands down better. It was so light and so scary fast.
It is. Is it a scary car to drive? It is quite a scary car to drive. Yeah.
It was nuts. It was, if you drove it, Michael, you would just, there's no anti-lock brakes.
There's no aids, right? There's
no
nothing
power steering, right? Yeah. There's no power brakes.
Right.
So if you shut the ignition off, they're really made to go take it on the track on classic car day, right? It drove like a go-kart. It just handled so well.
And the noise would be crazy.
No forgiveness.
Right.
Yeah, no forgiveness.
How does that work in the US though with these sort of replica cars? They're not a problem to get registered. How do they get past all the rules and regulations? Are they classed as a 65 car? Is that how they do it? Or it
was titled as a 1965 Factory 5 Racing Shelby Cobra was the model.
Right.
So I had it titled as a 1965. So I didn't have to go through our DEQ, our emissions control. And we don't have vehicle inspections here in Oregon like they do in Massachusetts, where you have to get an annual vehicle inspection to make sure it's safe.
Right.
As long as it passes emissions control, not polluting, then you're good to go.
So when over the time you owned the Factory 5 Racing Shelby Cobra, was there any issues with the car? Was it quite reliable, or did you have any things you had to fix? You had to get your friend to help you fix, or you fixed yourself?
It was super reliable. The engine was solid. It had a Tremec 5-speed transmission it's just bulletproof.
Yeah.
Nice and great transmission. Scary fast though. Yeah. I mean, because it's a fiberglass body, and I've scared a couple people by going really fast, really quick. But it's all torque, right? So you got to be careful. Yeah, super fun. What it started to do was little things started to vibrate loose.
Oh, okay.
Like the door latch on the driver's side. I was driving one day and the door flew open. I was like, okay.
All right.
My wife would kill me if that was her door and we were doing this.
Yeah.
And the trunk lid, there's a little chrome piece that goes in that holds the two parts of the hinge together. That vibrated out, and so little things started going through, and that's common for cars that people built themselves, right? It was time to move on because I only had 2,000 miles on it. I knew there was value there.
Okay.
And at this point, I had ruled out getting a Corvette because my wife was like, look, you're not going to look like a 50-year-old man that's having a midlife crisis driving a Corvette. It's off. But I'll tell you, you know what? Dollar for dollar, Corvette is an amazing car. It's not a 911.
Which model?
But it's an amazing car.
Which year, though?
I was looking to buy very last year, the 2019 Z51.
Right.
I was given a gander, but my eye was always on the 911, especially because of my friend Ron's car. It was gorgeous. And a couple of guys at a place I played golf with, they have Porsches, the 997 model. And that really pushed me.
So you've been seeing them around. You've been seeing the 997. I'm just wondering here because you've got muscle cars. You've got a '69 Camaro.
Yep.
You've got a Factory 5 Racing. Going, and I want to know how your process went from here, Bobby. Because you're starting to look. You're thinking. You're sitting on something. You're sitting on this Factory 5 Racing. You know it's worth money. The market is going crazy. Replica, I know that even with the Beck replicas for the Porsches, I know those prices jumped a lot during COVID and the waiting list for them got a lot longer. I was reading and I watched a few videos about that. So obviously there's a demand. The demand is increasing. What makes you, so you decide to sell the Factory 5. How do you go about that? Do you sell it privately? Do you sell it to a dealer? What do you do?
Privately.
Okay.
I sold it privately to somebody who turned out to be a dealer.
Okay.
Little shenanigans going there, but I made really good money on it.
That's good.
And I was able to put that towards my next purchase. And how we got there is, my wife is my best friend. I spent a lot of time with her, and she just didn't like riding any of those cars. And I asked her, got a surprise answer. What do you want me to get that we can go wine tasting in? We can go to dinner. We can do fun couple stuff with. She said, my dad had a 911 and I love that car. And I was like, I married the right person. And I forgot that her dad had a 911. That was before that we got married. It was when she was younger. And at that moment, it was solidified what I was going to get.
Okay, so it's a 911. So what do you got friends at, who have got 997s, you see 997s. So what, do you start looking for a 997 straight away, or do you start looking at 996s, which might be a little bit lower in price?
I started looking at the impact bumper 911s.
Yes.
In the early 80s.
Yes. So 83?
I think the 930s are, 84 to 86.
Okay, yes.
And I know the 930s were technically the turbos, right? Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And what I started realizing was that I had looked everywhere, right? Craigslist bat, classic cars, Hemmings. And if you wanted something that was nice, usually had high mileage, well over 100, or it just needed a lot of work. And so then, I get like I said, my friend has a 993, a 98, the last of the air cooled. I looked at that for like a second and said, okay, that's way too expensive.
I was going to say the prices are high on those for sure. Everywhere.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. So then, I asked a friend, hey, what year do you have? And he said, I have a 2007. And it was a 997.
Uh-huh.
And just love that car. So I tried to buy his, except he had an automatic. And I didn't know it was an automatic, and I didn't want one. I wanted a manual because I like that connection.
Yep.
So Craigslist, Bring a Trailer, local dealers. I was everywhere looking for this car. And I land.
Sorry, Bob, but let me interrupt for a second. When did you start looking for the 911? How long ago?
About 6 months ago.
So 6 months ago. So 6 months ago, the prices are on the rise, right? They're starting to go up.
Yep.
997 prices are going up as well. So, okay. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
And so I kind of missed the window, because you look at that and you look at what it was a year ago, and it's like, should have sold, but it all equals out. I always tell people, it's like, if you sell high, buy high, it is what it is. So what I would do is I went back to what I knew is I would go to dealers and drive cars that had 997s. I really didn't know what color did I like. This was going to be a big purchase for me. This was hopefully the last one. I doubt it. Car guys are car guys, right? We always have a wandering eye. No, but I'm telling my wife that, and if she's listening to this, I meant it.
We say that. We all say that to our wives. Yeah,
exactly. So, I was looking at color combinations, options, all those type of things, and it's a little overwhelming. The prices were high. I wasn't willing to. I was going to have to add to my budget. From other savings that I had, to get me what I really wanted, because I think I was about 10,000 off of what I thought I could get in what I wanted, what it was going to cost.
Okay. So, you want a 997, right? And it's a great car. I have a 997. I have a base Carrera 997, 2006 model. Mm-hmm. It makes sense that you want a manual because, you've come out of the Factory 5 Racing Cobra and you've come out of the Camaro. So it makes sense that you want a manual for the driving experience. And it also makes sense looking at a 997 compared to an 80s Carrera because, let's be honest, they're a bit rough inside. You see them for sale. They're not perfect. You know what I mean? You still got to spend money to get them to be comfortable. Right. Yeah. The 993 is probably better. But then, like you said, price point is way too high on 993s, especially if you want a Carrera S or a Carrera 4S. It's just insane. In Australia, the prices have gone absolutely insane on those cars. And they're so hard to find as well. They're not easy to find. So you're looking for a 997. Do you think, okay, I just want a base Carrera? Do I want a Carrera S? What do you start looking for? Or does the car just come to you? How does that come about?
A little bit of both. I drove I call it root beer, but I think it's macadamia nut, and took my wife to drive in it. And it was a 2008 4S. She hated the color. I liked it. It wasn't my first choice. And that's when I knew I wanted a 4S. I drove it. When every year we have to go through what's called EVOC, Emergency Vehicle Operation Course. And we have to get certified in driving fast. And we go out the Portland International Raceway. And I remember when I went from a non-all-wheel drive police car to an all-wheel drive police car, I instantly got to be a 30% better driver.
Okay.
And,
makes sense.
And so I wanted that all-wheel drive. Where a lot of the purists, when I was reading, listening, you were part of, your guys' podcast was part of my journey also, because I wanted to educate myself. And you're really the only 997 podcast out there. And even though you talk about all generations of Porsches and Porsches in general, I learned a lot about.
We love 997s.
Oh, love 997. I went back and I went back in your archives and found podcasts where you talk about different things, the IMS bearing, the bore scoring, to the interior, and to really educate myself. And that's where I landed on the 997. Because it was a big purchase, I was uncomfortable doing it myself. And when I was playing golf with a buddy of mine, he says, "Hey, I use an auto broker. I bought whatever the mid-size Porsche SUV. He got the GTS. It's the
Macan.
The Macan. Thank you. He got the GTS. And he says, this guy found it. He knows his Porsches.
Yep.
And so he gave me his card. If I can say his name, he helped me out a lot. I'd love to.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Todd Staver at West Coast Auto Enthusiasts. He's in Beaverton, Oregon. Great guy. I told him what I wanted. He knew what I was doing, all the things I just told you. He educated me more about Porsches, thought that, we talked about the 996, the 997, the 991. He really felt the value was in the 997. As he called it, was the last of the analog Porsches. And he was saying this. And he educated me about, the 997.1 versus the 997.2.
Yes.
The 0.2, because of the 2008 crisis, financial crisis,
yes,
Porsche just really wasn't making cars during those times. And so 2008 is really like the 4S. Porsche worldwide only made 3,600 4Ss. It went down to, I want to say the next year, like 2,200 and then down to 1,100. So they're really hard to find.
Yeah.
I heard rarity. And so, well, which one of these rarities can I afford? I'm thinking value for my dollar, right? Something that's rare tends to be worth more. So we started the search, and he was looking, and he found a car that another dealer was trying to sell, and the price was way up there. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of watching it, waiting for it to come to auction. At the same time, I was still doing my research of driving cars for free, right?
Yes.
And a quick segue, I thought there was a moment that I was moving away from a 2008 4S. I saw another guy I played golf with. I saw his 991 in the parking lot at the golf course. And I went, oh, that's got a lot of fun, updated stuff.
Yeah. But wouldn't you only get a 991 Carrera for the same price as a 997 4S, right? It would be about the same sort of price. I'm going by Australian UK prices, it's about the same price. Or maybe even the 991's a bit more expensive. But I think going back to your point, Bobby, is a very good point. The rarity of the 4S, and I think people forget about this. And also the appeal of the 4S because of the wide body. You know what I mean? That wide back, I keep saying it, and I noticed it when I was in my friend Nick's car in the UK when we went out to Goodwood, looking through the revision mirror and seeing the rear, how much wider it is than mine. And the first thing I thought, wow, why does that look so different through the revision mirror? Because it really is that so much wider. The rarity, the fact that you've got the manual transmission on the 4S, and I still think the 4S, and maybe I'm thinking Australia here, but the 4S is a little bit like the Turbo, where a lot of people spec'd it in auto. They didn't always spec it in manual. Do you know what I mean? And I think that makes it even a little bit more unique. Yeah.
Yes. To this part up, I saw a local dealer had one, and it was just a Carrera 4.
Okay.
And it had a minor accident, which I wanted to stay away from. But if I could get a smoking deal on it. So I went in there and lowballed it. And we were kind of going back and forth. And I called Todd on the phone, who's trying to find me a car and asking him for advice. And he was just a great guy about it. Let's talk this through. You can buy it if you want, but let's talk this through. And what I came to is it's like, I don't want this car, right? I'm going to have to explain why it was in a minor accident. I was able to find the owner through internet searches and talk to him about the car. But it wasn't the car I wanted. But if I didn't go look at it, drive it, do those things, I wouldn't be where I am today, where I'm confident. Within 4 days, maybe a week, Todd calls me back and says, remember that 2008 2-owner California car with a 57, I think it had 57,000 miles on it.
Wow, that's good.
That was black with the natural brown interior, which was like check, 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 check of all the things I wanted. Because I remember I said, Michael, I went and drove and saw cars.
Yes.
So I kind of built the car in my head I was looking for, and that's why it was taking so long. And
so was this a local car? Was it a local car or not?
It was a California car.
Okay. So where was it? Was it for sale in Oregon, or was it for sale? Is it for sale in California somewhere?
It was for sale in California, and because he's a broker,
right?
Bells and whistles go off when certain cars just drop for him, and he's looking at, and he's able to deal dealer to dealer to try to get that. How Todd will make his money is he tries to buy it as low as he can, and then sells at the price. We agreed on a price, Todd and I did before.
Okay.
And it says, I'll get you this car for this price. So you want to pay for that. And back and forth. And I had to go up realizing the Porsche market was going up.
Yes.
And what I wanted was expensive. And what I want your listeners to hear is when you're looking for a Porsche, the number one, especially a 997, the one piece of advice I can give you is make sure you're looking apples to apples, not apples to oranges. What I mean by that is if you have a 2008 4S, you have two of them, and they look identical, right? They're not.
Yes.
Go get your VIN decoder. Get what that sticker price was and what those options were. Because, my car, I was looking at a car local, and Todd was able to explain it to me. And when I really looked at it, I looked at VIN decoder and I put them up next to each other. And you guys saw the sticker or the window sticker, right?
Yes.
And one was spec'd out at, $92,000 was the same price that I was looking to pay for this car that I have now. And my car was spec'd out at $111,000.
Yeah, and it makes sense when you look at your car as well. You can see the money that's been put into it. So Todd finds this car for you. How does it all work then, Bobby? What happens? Does he get the car shipped to Oregon? How do you get it checked? How do you know that everything's okay for your first 911?
So what he has to do is he has to get the car shipped to Oregon. First of all, he has to buy it. And the dealer still wanted more, where Todd wasn't going to be able to make any money.
Right.
So he wanted to wait a little longer to go to auction. Yeah. I've been looking for so long. I just said, make the guy a pre-auction offer. And he goes, okay, we might lose this car if I do that. I said, I've been looking at this car for a couple months, waiting to come into reality.
Yep.
And he did. Called me back 5 minutes later. Good choice, Bob. It's yours.
So it's yours. So
what happens then?
So when are the checks done then? When are the checks done? You've agreed to buy this car. So have any checks been done on the car? I mean, have you seen the service records? Not yet. Okay.
Yes. I've seen the service records, and what I liked about it is the last owner had always had it serviced at a Porsche down in, I'll say it's Walnut Creek, California.
Okay.
And the Carfax shows all that. They have records to back it up. Right. The last owner owned it it's a 13-year-old car. He owned it for 12.
Oh, wow.
The first owner owned it for about a year.
Okay, that's good history.
So you can see why I wanted this, right?
Yep.
You see why I wanted this car.
Yep.
And that's why I was willing to do this. But by going through my broker, what he does is he would be able to explain this better, is he is able to take an insurance policy out.
Right.
On the car. So when it gets to Oregon, we have 10 days or 100 miles to file a claim that if it was not as represented.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Right. So
you've got that guarantee.
Because of that, I was,
okay.
Yeah, I kind of had this. I mean, we would still either have to send the car back and pay for the shipping. But that's part of his fee, right?
Okay.
I give him my price, or he tells me my price, and all this he has to factor in.
Yep.
To make money, including if he has to ship the car back.
Yeah.
So he paid for the shipping up. He has a tech that works for him that looks over the car, codes it, see if there's any codes, see if anything was reset, see if there was a tune put into it.
So it gives you the confidence. It gives you the confidence. There's a process there, and he goes through certain checks, and it gives you the confidence to move forward. So you say yes to this car. So let's tell the listeners, because I want to get into the car. Tell the listeners exactly what this your first Porsche is, Bobby. It's in the description, but tell them exactly what it is, and you know what the options are, and some of the key options that made you really want this car.
It's a 2008 Porsche 4S. It has a brown natural leather interior. It's got what's called, I think it's deviating carpet, where I think that's where they offset the color of, I think it's where they offset the color of the actual door panels and stuff like that. So my dash, my door panels, my seats are all this, it's leather everywhere, natural brown leather. But the carpet around the car is all this black deviating carpet, and it's got the sports chrono package. It's got the module for the telephone. It's got nav. It's got the Bose high-end sound package. I got mats in the interior color. What's really cool about it is the door entry guards. You know, they're stainless steel. You see them a lot, right?
Yeah, they're the ones I want.
Usually it's painted that says 4S.
Yeah.
These are 4S illuminated.
Yeah.
So they laser cutted the Carrera 4S out.
Yeah.
And so when you open the door, a light comes on.
Yeah, they're nice. Nice little touch. You know what else I really like? And I'm looking at the picture you sent me. And your interior color is a good color because it's not the light color. It's a darker color, isn't it? You know, it's not that light sort of beige sort of Porsche leather color. I really like your steering wheel as well. You've got the good steering wheel. That's the one I want. The round one. I've got the triangle one. That's a great wheel.
Yeah, it's the thick. It's an add-on. It's a thicker leather steering wheel where they put an extra wrap on it.
That's an option for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, a lot of guys, the picture I sent you this morning of just the back end, it's got the red taillights, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a factory option.
Right.
And so, which is cool. It's a lot of people would put aftermarkets in there, but Porsche made a factory option if you wanted all red taillights, and this guy did. And it also it's got Fabspeed headers, Fabspeed exhaust.
Okay.
And he put the guy who owned it before, it was actually his wife's car, which
really,
my friends always tease me about that. Oh, you got a lady's car. Oh, isn't that cute? And, but he used to race Porsches.
Oh,
and so
okay.
he did a couple minor things to it. So it's got the Fabspeed performance package on it.
You know, I've had a few people on Owner Stories who have had bought, I think 997s actually, who the cars have also had the Fabspeed on. Fabspeed's quite popular, isn't it? It's more popular than what I thought it was. What other modifications did the owner do to the car? It looks like you've got different pedals as well, have you, from this image? It looks like you've got sports
different pedals,
racing pedals.
Yep, put some sports racing pedals in, probably because the gentleman, his Porsche racing heritage. I was able to find out who he was. He was very gracious to talk to me. I sent him a text message, told him who I was. And he gave me you can't put a price on it, the history of the car.
Yes.
You know, the peace of mind of knowing that this person cared for the car. And his wife had an injury. He couldn't drive a car anymore, and that's why they sold it.
Yeah, and I keep coming back to this in other podcasts and other owner stories, and I think, you know, I got it from Jay Leno actually, because Jay Leno was talking about it, I think, how he buys cars, and I think he was talking about that brown Porsche that he bought, the 71 or 72 Porsche 911, and how there's a story. He likes cars with a story. It's like he doesn't want to buy the car, and then he goes and sees it, and it's got this great story, and he goes, oh, I have to buy it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like that. And with you, how you got in contact with the owner, it's knowing that story, you know, that you're a caretaker of this car. And then, you know, you've got that story and you can share that story with the next owner. And I think that's what's great about Porsche. And that's what's great about the Porsche community, is that there's these stories out there and they're being shared and they're being spoken about, and they become part of the car. And I think that's what's really great about it. The other option I noticed on your car, Bobby, is the dials as well. That's quite unique, the color of your dials. And I think I mentioned that to you in the message when you showed me that picture. I haven't seen dials that color before. It is.
Yeah, usually the S model is what will have the white gauges.
Yeah, correct.
Well, they optioned, it's called instrument dials natural brown. XF is the code for it. So when they spec'd it out, they wanted the dials to be the same color as the interior. And at night, when you illuminate the cluster, looks beautiful.
It works, and it looks like they're pretty easy to see during the daytime as well. They're quite clear. Because sometimes the white dials are a bit too hard. Sometimes a lot of people don't like white dials, I noticed. And I noticed some S's and 4S's, they spec them without the white dials. You could have actually spec them with just black if you wanted all the normal color. So what other aftermarket modifications? So it's got the Fabspeed exhaust. It's got a really good sound. You don't have to worry about that. Anything else?
There's two things that they did that he did. That was one that I loved is it originally came with 19-inch turbo wheels. Okay. But if you look at those pictures, those are real GTS 3 wheels.
Oh, okay.
Those are GT3 wheels.
GT3 wheels, are they? Oh, so they are. Yep. So they are. He's put GT3 wheels on it. So they are. Yep, they are. They're the same as what's on Steve's 997 GT3. Yep. Yes,
exactly. They look exactly the same. I love them. I think that's such a nice touch. And it's probably from his racing heritage that he thought that car would look good with it. But another thing they did is they clear broad the whole front of the car.
Right.
Which is nice.
And how's that holding up, Bobby? Because after a bit of time, you notice that it gets nicks in it, and sometimes they discolor. How's that holding up, that Clear?
Great. The car was in amazing shape when I got it. There's a couple nicks in it, but it's only something I'm going to notice. You don't really notice it.
Okay, so you're at home. Todd's sorted out this car for you. It gets delivered to your house, or you have to go and pick it up from somewhere. What is that first moment like when all those years and your progression from, the pickup to the Camaro to the Factory 5 racing, and now you've got the 911. You've got a car that you and your wife can enjoy. How is that feeling? Did you pick it up by yourself, or did you take your wife along?
No, she's still working. She works all the time. I have nothing but time during the day because being retired. He called me up, and I went over to the shop right away. I knew it was there. It'd been there, but it had to go through the inspection, DEQ. He was going to go clean the car up so it would make a good impression. And the first thing I see as I come from the back of it, just how gorgeous the hips on this car was.
Yeah.
Because it's basically the turbo body. It's just, and I was just going, I can't. And the rear fairing was up.
Okay. Yeah.
And so and I think that's because I was talking about the whale fin, before about, and it just, cause I like that look, with the tail up.
Yeah. It looks good.
And I was just, like I am right now, I was just shaking my head and just speechless because I was like, I can't believe I did it.
Yeah.
I had a goal, and it took several years, and,
but it must have been a great feeling.
It was. It's still a great feeling. I've owned it for about 3 weeks now, I think 3 weeks, maybe a month.
Is it, and that's very new. So is it but it's everything that you thought it would be? It fits the purpose perfectly. Your wife enjoys it. It's a great all-round sports car.
Great all-around sports car. And we went to the Oregon wine country last weekend, and she's been working really hard at work. I said, we need to make some time for us. And this is why we got, and I drove her around so she could wine taste, and the back roads to the Oregon wine country is just beautiful. And then when you see, remember earlier in the podcast, we were talking about looking over the front and seeing those headlights, right? And if you're driving through wine country, seeing that, and you got your best friend next to you, that's why I bought the car.
Yep. And that's the first time. That's obviously that moment that you'll always remember. That moment is obviously that moment.
And I picked that moment. I wanted to be special. So the first time that she was in the car, that's what we did.
Yep. So how does it feel? Because we all know when we first get a 911. I mean, I was a bit scared to drive my 911 when I first got it. I thought, am I going to lose control of it? Is it too powerful? You have these kind of feelings in your head. You know what I mean? Because I didn't come from very fast cars. Reasonably fast, but not super fast. So how did it compare though in your head now when you've had it? You've only had it a few months, but how did it compare to the previous cars, to the Replica and to the Camaro? Is it far removed? Like, the Porsche engineering, the weight transfer, the rear engine and everything like that. How do you describe that? Was that a really weird feeling for you going into this German rear-engined, sports car?
Yeah, it was, because the other two cars were like riding on the back of a gorilla, right? They were That's
a great way.
You couldn't trust it. You didn't know. Right. You didn't know. They weren't very predictable about what they were going to do.
Yeah.
They were just so much torque.
Yeah.
And the difference with a Porsche, remember, as a police officer, we respond to emergency calls all the time. So I drove over 100 miles an hour every day of my career, right? Going to emergency 911 calls, right? So I'm accustomed to driving fast. I've had years and years of training, not like race car training, but
I
years
was
of
going to
training.
ask you that actually. I was going to ask you that because I thought, you're a pretty good driver then. You'd be a very good driver because you trained to be a good driver, right? You've been trained to drive fast
Right.
but safe.
Lots of hours.
Yeah.
Right. Lots of hours with an instructor on the course, teaching safe, because they don't want us to, get it like vehicle pursuits.
Yes.
Very dangerous.
Yes.
When I started, we used to chase cars so the wheels fell off. And now times have changed, and there's very few crimes that we will pursue, get in a vehicle pursuit. But, let me tell you something, Michael. There's nothing
must be
more
scary.
fun.
Is that scary though when you first become an officer and you do those, and you have to do a pursuit for the first time and you're driving? I mean, my brother in Australia was a fireman, and he learned to drive the truck, and he was telling me how he used, learning to drive that truck and driving that truck, and at those speeds was quite scary. I reckon it'd be worse being an officer and driving a police car, which is even faster.
Well, not only that, what's crazy about when you first learn is that you're trying to talk to the radio, right? To let everybody else know what's going on. This is the direction we're traveling. This is our speeds. This is the traffic around me. These are the crimes I have. This is why I'm chasing this car. And giving update, predicting the next street that's coming up. Okay, we're coming up on Burnside. We're going to travel, south on 47th. You have all that in your head, and you have to drive in a way that you're not going to crash. Yeah. And you got to keep up with this person. Yeah. Right. So it's a bit overwhelming, but as you get years on you and experience and more training, it's, we always joke we're steering with one hand, talking to the radio, drinking a cup of coffee while we're, the car. I'm exaggerating.
That's not how you drive your 911 though, is it?
No, it's not. There's no, I don't let any, no drinks or food in the car right now.
No drinks or food. So
but what I notice about the 911 is it's so refined. Yeah. It's very predictable, and the car will go much faster than I'm comfortable driving. Yeah. Right. And I've drove very fast. But it's so safe. The all-wheel drive of the 4S, it's like the car is on rails. It's unbelievable. When I drove some other non-two-wheel drives, a lot of guys like the back end to get a little loose, feel a little more engaged. I don't like that. I like the security of the all-wheel drive.
Yeah, and then, the 911 just, the cornering enjoyment in a 911 just can't be beaten. You know what I mean? I don't think it can be beaten. It's just that feeling that you get and you feel it. The first time I drove my car, and I've said this story many times over, on a twisty road outside of, south of Sydney and in Australia. And it's just like, you just feel it. You just feel the weight transfer. You feel the power. You feel how much power, like you said, even on my base Carrera, you feel how much more power you have. And you realize how much faster you can take a corner than what you did in your previous cars. That's the one thing that I noticed, and you look at the speedo and you go, wow, I'm going that fast around this corner. That's probably too fast.
You just giggle.
Yeah, and you make it.
Yeah,
and
you go,
works.
how am I going this fast?
Yeah, and it works,
right.
Which is crazy.
Yep.
Bobby, you've got your dream car. You've got your Porsche 911. What else are you like all of us and you're thinking, what else can I do? Is there anything you want to add to it, or is it perfect just the way it is?
It's pretty dang perfect. I love the GT3 wheels. I didn't mind that. I like the look of the turbo wheels also, but so a lot of this stuff I was lucky that the last owner cared for this car.
Yes.
All the maintenance was done. Everything that needs to be done was always done. It's the interior is flawless. There's no dents, no even little door dings on it. I probably would have changed the wheels if it didn't have the GT3 wheels on it, but that is such a good look on that car.
The wheels are great. They're not cheap wheels either. They're expensive wheels.
No, I'm glad I didn't have to pay for them.
Yeah,
they're very expensive.
Yeah, they look fantastic, and I like how they're silver.
They're in great shape. Great shape. The two things the one thing I thought about is I went back and forth and read some forums about maybe tinting the windows because my BMW, I like the windows tinted. And then I've looked at a lot of the photographs that you post on your feed. It's a preference. It's just not for me on this particular car.
You know what? You know what, Bobby? I've been thinking about this, and I haven't actually mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it now. I've been thinking that I may remove the tint on my car when I get back to Australia. My car came tinted. It's quite heavily tinted, actually. I didn't realize, but in some photos, it looks very heavily tinted. But I'm thinking about removing the tint. Now, I don't know if that's going to be more problematic than what it's worth, because I know I've heard stories that on the back window, if it's been quite hot and it's had a lot of heat to it with the radiator sort of thing in the window and the glass, it can actually be hard to come off. But I kind of like this clean look on 911s where you can see in. You know what I mean? That old classic look where you can just see into the car. I know Steve's probably listening to this and laughing, but I have been thinking about it. I have been thinking about removing the tint. So I understand why you don't want to go down that route. But then again,
I love the interior so much.
Yeah,
I want people to see it. It's part of the character of the car.
Yeah, and the black 911, and I'm like I've said before, I haven't always been a fan of different colored leather interiors, but in the last few years, and I think it's because we lived in living in Bahrain for the couple of years, that you see a lot of cars with red interior, tan interior. I'm still not a huge fan of red interiors. I don't mind the new Porsche interiors where they're two-tone, where the dash is black and then red, but I think a black 911 with a tan, your colored interior always looks really good. Even if it's in a Boxster, it looks really good. A guy in Sydney that I speak to who has a Boxster and an air-cooled, his Boxster has got red leather with full carbon, like it was fully specced out. He's actually put a post on his Instagram today and a picture of it. And it looks fantastic. You know what I mean? It's that little bit of point of difference. But what I like about your car, like you said, you look through the windows, it's not tinted, and you can see the leather. You can see the quality of the leather, and it's very nice. Very, very nice.
The only other thing I thought about is I did not want to put a factory. I didn't want a car that had one, and I wasn't going to put a factory head unit in. I like the look, even though the head unit's horrible, right? That sounds, you can get an aftermarket stereo. It sounds way better than that. That's not why I got the car.
No.
I want it to look how it came off. So there's some aftermarket Bluetooth connections that will connect to that head unit. So that's probably the only thing right now that I'll do. And I'm the Camaro, complete new suspension, right? Went through it straight away. But this car is just how I wanted it.
Perfect. So do you have to get a service done? Was the service history, like, what was happening with that? Is it due for a major service or a minor service, or how is it looking on that front?
They just did at 56.5, I think 56,500 miles. They put a new coil and all new plugs.
Okay.
And did the 60,000 miles service on it. So I don't have to, but that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
They hadn't drove the car. So mechanics are, Porsche certified mechanics are booked right now.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like that now, it's just booked here. It's hard to get an appointment. So I booked appointment straight away, and I'm going to get it checked out again, and get the oil changed.
Oh, that's good.
So I can get on that yearly. I want to get on the yearly oil change. Yeah. You've read all the forms. It's Porsches. You need to drive them, and you need to keep the oil fresh.
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So, Bobby, what else?
Yes.
Sorry, what were we going to say? I've cut you off.
The one little funny thing about it, where a brand new Porsche owner, and I'm sure everybody's probably experienced this, is when I first drove it back from the broker's where he stored it at, it hadn't been fully charged, and it started blowing codes, and I was like, what is going on? How much is this? And it was set up to be on a trickle charger. Right. So I got it home and I put it on he said, just put it back on your trickle charger. Cause I had a trickle charger for both the other cars, cause I don't drive them that often. And the next day, all the codes cleared, and same thing happened when, part of the deal, we got new tires for it.
Okay.
Also, cause the tires were in good shape, but they were old.
Oh, okay.
And safety.
Yes.
My wife was very uncomfortable driving the other cars because safety. So I put a brand new, Michelin, PS2s the N rating ones.
Yep, same as what I've got on mine. Yep, which they recommend.
Yeah, I just put 4 brand new of those.
Good tires.
Driving home, all of a sudden, yeah, they're great tires. But then the light went on. What's going on with this light? The tires, the what?
What was the light?
You know, it was about it wasn't sensing the pressure in the light.
Oh, because they've got to do something with the tire pressure monitor sensor, right? That's in the wheel.
Yes.
Or whatever. I don't have those in my car, but I know Steve's mentioned it. There's something they have to reset, don't they?
Yeah, you have to reset it. And luckily I got all the books and everything from this car, and I had read just enough different like 6-speed online, all the online chat places that I read, like, hey, quit asking questions on Facebook groups and this. Bust out your owner's manual and read about your car. So I did that, and I figured out how to reset it, and I did. And yeah, it was great advice. I
think everyone forgets that. There's a wealth of information in your owner's manual. There are so many, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's funny when you go to the forums and someone has the image of the page in the owner's manual, and there it is. There's the answer. It's like, just read your manual. Yep. No one reads the manuals anymore. I actually did read mine. I was a bit crazy like that. I took it upstairs. I took it into our apartment in Sydney, and I was like sitting there and I just read it over a few days when I first got the car, just to familiarize myself with, certain things. So, Bobby, we're coming to the end of the podcast. We've gone a little bit longer than the hour, but that's fine. I want to talk about your favorite drives, because everyone likes to know where to drive their sports car, where to drive their 911. Someone's coming to Portland. Someone's coming to Oregon. What's the place where you would recommend for a great drive in a Porsche or any other car, in fact, and a road that you enjoy, or the road that you want to enjoy in your 911?
Well, I would say go up the old Columbia River Highway up in Corbett, Oregon. It's a historic road, very windy, a lot of waterfalls. It's just gorgeous. Best time to drive it is in the fall when all the leaves are turning, not in the summertime, because it's just bumper to bumper with people looking at waterfalls.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, where else? Oregon wine country. It's beautiful.
Fantastic. I have to say, it's a place I do want to visit. I've never been to Oregon, and it is a place that I would like to visit one day when things get back to normal, that's for sure.
Hit me up.
I will. Bobby, anything else you want to share with the listeners before we go?
No, thank you. I appreciate your podcast. Like I said, I really used your listening to all the old podcasts and doing research about what vehicle I wanted and why. And so thank you.
No, thanks for coming on, and thanks for reaching out to me. And I'm glad you had the time today to share your story. And I think everyone's going to enjoy it. And I really like how you had a plan. Do you know what I mean? I because it doesn't always come. I know some people get their first 911 when they're 20. It doesn't always happen for all of us. And it seems there's a trend that we always get a Porsche later in life. It's not a midlife crisis sort of thing. It's just priorities and how we progress.
Yes.
But I like how you worked the way up, how you thought about it. You know what I mean? Especially from your 2013, wasn't it? Toyota pickup, and then your 69 Camaro, then your Factory 5 Racing, and now your Carrera 4S, which is, like you said, your dream car. So I think it's...
it's gorgeous. I love it.
It's a great story. Really is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bobby. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for the chat.
All right, everyone. That's Bobby coming in from Portland in Oregon with his 2008 911 Carrera 4S 997, my favorite generation of the Porsche 911, that's for sure. It's Bobby's first Porsche, and it's his dream car. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. That's it for today. Bye for now.